Okay, testing my audio. I have a completely new setup, pretty much completely new, and I had some audio difficulties, so
Testing my
hopefully
audio.
my mic is
I have a
okay. Completely new setup, pretty much completely new, and it sounds like I'm doing all right. Okay, so that's good. That's nice. Let me just do a couple more things, and I'll be back pretty soon. Alrighty, I am ready. So it's been a while since I've streamed, so forgive me if I am a little rusty with what's going on here. So welcome back to my Bleach fight series where we're going to be doing random fights. I should probably change the title of the stream because it auto does it to the last stream, so I'll be talking about Grand Fisher and whatnot. How do I change that? See, here we are, not knowing what to do. Here we are. So I'll just do Bleach live stream. And there's the title fixed, and we're all good. So how this works, if you do not know, we'll probably have a shorter one today, but I have a list of 228 Bleach characters who have been in a fight, or I feel like I could talk about being in a fighting situation. And we're gonna have a random generator, this spinning wheel. We're gonna pick two combatants, and I'm just gonna talk about them. We're just gonna chat. Yeah, so we usually have 3 to 5 per video, but we'll just see how it goes. And I have different, as you see there, we have a big list of Ichigo, so all different like parts of Ichigo in the story, and it's mostly done not by parts in the story, but by what they had available. Like it would be Chad with both arms or Chad single arm version 1 instead of like Soul Society Chad. So we'll just take the strongest they have been with that form. For those who have already seen my live streams, you already know. So let's just start and spin the wheel for fight number 1. So, fight number 1, our first combatant is Ichigo Bankai only, sure. And I'm a little rusty on Bleach, but hopefully this will warm me up. And hopefully I can start working on another Bleach video. In the meantime, because I got my laptop. I got a laptop now. Anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to spin for combatant number 2, and if we have three, like if we have one that doesn't really make sense, like if it's like base Nell, or it's like one of Ichigo's classmates, or it's just not an interesting fight, we'll respin up to 3 times. So, Bankai Ichigo versus Renji Bankai. Let's do this as a warm up. This will be a quick warm up because I mean we know who's gonna win here, but let's do this. And I can feel confident with what I'm doing. Um, Ichigo. Um, Renji. G Bankai. Nice. There we are. And I usually change the colors, but this will should be a quick one, so let's just get into it. So Ichigo Bankai only versus Renji Bankai only. Now, obviously, we would think Ichigo is stronger than Renji. Ichigo will win, and Ichigo's Bankai seems better than Renji's Bankai, so he would win. Um, but let's talk about it. Let's do this because we are talking about. I mean, we usually talk about the strongest version, and ooh, so there's two ways we can take it. It's if Ichigo has access to his Hollow Mask, but he doesn't use it, or if it's before Ichigo has access to his Hollow Mask. But either way, he won't be using any sort of Hollow Power. So, Renji tries to fight Byakuya, and he loses. And Byakuya does use his Bankai to beat Renji's Bankai. He doesn't beat him in Shikai. Now, could he have beaten him in Shikai? Probably, maybe, but he does pull out Bankai, and that does stop him in his tracks. Now, similar thing happens with Ichigo, is Byakuya pulls out his Bankai on Ichigo's Shikai, and Ichigo responds by going Bankai. So it's the other way round, but Ichigo was going to lose so hard in his Shikai, so hard. And Ichigo was going to lose if it weren't for the fact that White Zangetsu like interfered with the fight. Otherwise, both Ichigo and Renji would have lost to Byakuya. I see Tokamon in the in the chat. What up, stranger? Thank you for joining me. I usually don't have anybody join me for these. I usually only get people in for the Nuzlocke live stream. So thank you for joining me. I'm doing well today. I'm feeling a little nervous because I haven't live streamed in a while, but I'm happy to be talking about Bleach again. Thanks for being in the stream. Um, yeah. Yeah, so essentially, if we're using Byakuya as a benchmark against these two, both of them would lose against him. Ichigo would have lost against him, and even though when he does use the Hollow Mask by accident and stuff, the fight still ends in what seems like a stalemate. It's only because Byakuya concedes and loses his sword that he gives up. Now, Byakuya supposedly, because he flash steps away, does have the strength to do like another Kido or something, while Ichigo kind of faints afterwards, although he does get back into the fight after being partially healed. He seemed really, really drained, so I think even though Byakuya was defeated and there was the whole like story aspect, like the theme of going against the law there. Technically, even with the Hollow Mask, Ichigo kind of only stalemated. Um, so these are way more comparable than you would think, these two Bankais, and both of which are kind of looked down upon by Byakuya, which even though he has a lot of emotions caught up, especially with Ichigo, um, he is a seasoned and well-versed Soul Reaper, so what he says does have some weight. And the fact that he looks at both Renji's Bankai and Ichigo's Bankai and kind of is just like, these are not complete Bankai. These are very, very rudimentary Bankai. And that makes sense because both of them trained in a short time period to achieve it, and it was their first time really using their Bankais. So, in a sense, this is actually way more even than you would think. Both of them are very rudimentary, weaker Bankais. The only difference really is that Ichigo is stronger than Renji in base form, and Renji's Bankai is a lot more cumbersome, even though he has some really cool moves like Igaseko and Ikotsu Taiho, and Ichigo just has the Getsuga. Ichigo has the speed, while if anything, Renji's more cumbersome because he has this giant thing he has to move around with, and it doesn't give him a speed boost. So in terms of like how they stack up against Byakuya, I think it's fairly similar actually. without the hollow mask. But if they were to fight each other, like we see, like we're doing right now, fight versus each other, Ichigo would win just because of his speed and destructive power. Like, Renji would struggle a lot to hit Ichigo, and even if he did strike him with like an Ikotsu Taiho, what's funny about that is Ikotsu Taiho to me always seems like very similar to a Sero, and Ukiura talks about Ichigo's uh, Black Getsuga being similar to Sero or Skioras. So I think they would be able to cancel each other out, and that's kind of the best Renji has, unfortunately. So, and with Igaseko, Ichigo's just too fast, and he knows about Renji, so I feel like it would be a surprisingly even match, actually, but Ichigo would win due to his speed. And Tokomon says, I think I was watching your Emerald streams and you're still showing up on my newsfeed. That's epic! Because the Emerald streams were a while ago. I thought your name was familiar. Yeah, so I haven't had a laptop for like all year basically. I lost my laptop in January. Yeah, in January. Late January. So I've not been able to live stream, I've not been able to edit videos at all, but I've saved up some money and I have a laptop again. So I will be continuing my Pokemon Emerald Nuzlocke series. I'll be live streaming that. I'd like to live stream that tonight. I am living elsewhere now, so my time difference is yeah, my time zone is different. So instead of doing 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I'm probably going to be doing it at like 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time because I want to do it at 8 local time. Yeah. Yeah, well, thanks for joining the stream, Tokamon. So that was the first fight. I don't know if you're interested in Bleach, or you're just listening to me talk about nonsense over here, but that's fine. Um, so that's been our warm up. So let's just get rid of this and we'll go back to our wheel and do the second fight. Mm, The wheel. I've not been watching much Bleach either. I've been starting on some new anime actually, which is nice. It's all good. We all live life. Exactly. Yeah, it's been pretty crazy. I've had a lot of changes recently, so it's nice to be back doing something familiar. That is nice, even though I'm a bit nervous to be live streaming again. So we have Hans's gang, which is from the filler arc, the Shusuke Amagai or Bakoto filler arc, and that is Hans is the head honcho of the Kasumioji assassins, and Hanzo's gang is those three uh like I don't know, like his henchmen, which is like Gengai Doko, Genga, and that other guy who I always forget his name because he's really boring. Um, I think I might have to find his name. Let's see if we have it up here. Uh, Genga, Gengai Doko, Genga, and Kuzuryu. Okay, Kuzuryu. I struggle with that one. But sure, Hans's gang versus Old Man Bound, Solwatari. Okay, let's do it. Because they're both filler characters. Let's do this. Um, alright, alright. Just give me a moment and I'll write down the names. And then we'll get talking about it. If you're still with us, Tokamon, how have you been? What's changed in your life? since the beginning of the year. Do old Bout. Because funnily enough, we don't actually hear his name. I remember when I was rewatching, I was keeping my eye out for his name in the anime, and they don't give it. They never mention it, which I think is kind of interesting because usually, like that's one thing about anime is like they have to like formally, and even in Bleach particularly, they like have to formally introduce their names, but some of the bouts don't do that, or they do it really late on, and I don't think this guy ever mentions his name. Maybe someone calls him by his name, but I don't remember that either. So Watari, I don't really know the pronunciation because they don't say it. Um, okay. Pokemon says I've been playing Pokemon Unite and been doing Terra raids. Nice, nice. I've actually been playing a new Pokemon game in the meantime because I haven't had my stuff. But I've been playing on my friend's Switch and he has Pokemon Violet, and it's a really interesting game. It's very different, and I like a lot of it, and some bits I feel are kind of disappointing, but it's interesting. Been watching a lot of Twitch also. Nice. Yeah. Cool. I don't watch too much Twitch, but I do drop in now and again. Hans's gang. Okay, so let's get through this. These are both filler characters. Or filler, yeah, filler characters. So Hans's gang I've already explained. It's Gengai Doko, Gengar, and Kazuryu. And they all have what are they called again? Bakotos with special abilities. Kazuryu's one means he can disperse his body into like a mist, so he can't be attacked while he's in that form, supposedly, although I suspect something like Hyurimaru would be able to freeze that mist. Um, but our opponent doesn't have that ability. And he can materialize himself to attack, but he has to materialize to attack. If you're a Naruto fan, it's like a much worse version of what Toby has, like that. I forget its name, but you know, the uh the thing Kakashi and Toby have. Anyway, and then Gengar has a Bakoto which he can create like stone walls with, and he can like morph into those stone walls that he creates. I don't think he can morph into anything else. Um, maybe he can dig through the ground or something. And then Gengai Doko can eat. He's like this little gremlin guy. He can eat his Bakoto, and the more he eats of the metal, the more metallic his body becomes, and he becomes the blade, which is pretty cool. It's kind of a little bit like the Zanpakuto Bankai or whatever. Like you become the blade, but he's literally eating it. And all of these people, even if they're injured, fate or almost fatally, they can feed the Bakoto and basically start a timer where they will die soon, but they get enormous strength. So they can like they'll go down and they'll come back up really strong, but if you can survive for a while, they will just disintegrate. And it's going to be a 3v1 or 2 because Old Man Bount Sawatari, he's the bout with the giant fish. I forget its name, but it's like a giant stone carp fish, like carp, and it has like a pocket dimension in its mouth, and it can swim. This is really interesting because they have similar abilities. It can swim through physical objects like the ground and buildings in an alternative dimension, and then it can materialize itself and come out, which is basically like a combination of both Kazuryu's Bakoto ability and Gengar's. So that's actually fascinating. I've never thought about it. See, this is why I like doing these live streams because you pick two characters you would never think to do a versus fight for, and you realize that there's a similarity or there's something interesting going on there. So, what would happen here in this 3v2? Because the old man Bount, if he's killed or if the doll's killed, they both die, they're connected. But he sits on the I think his name's Baura or something. he sits on his doll, which is the stone fish, and he can like be encased inside it to protect him. The weakness of the fish is its belly, its underside. And when he gets a buff halfway through the story, through the bout arc, where he can he can go through air too, like he can travel through the air. So meaning he can still needs to travel, but he can materialize whenever and wherever he wants to, and then eat you and yeah, then just disappear. So when he bites you, he bites that bit off, and that bit gets sent to the pocket dimension. If he eats you whole, you stay alive, but you need some sort of ability to get you out of there, like Noba's teleportation or something, because he also has a pocket dimension for some reason. Either way, Hans's gang don't have anything like that. But Gengar can fuse into stone that he creates, and I think perhaps the ground too. So he can kind of do something similar there, but I don't think it's going to be helpful unless he could actually fuse with the doll itself because it's made out of stone. Um, because if he's like in the ground or in a wall, that actually won't help him because the bout hard counters that because he can travel through the wall also and materialize himself whenever, supposedly within the wall also, although that might be risky or something. I don't know if he can get stuck. But basically that ability of Gengar's does not help at all because he can travel through stone. So Gengar, which I feel like is one of the stronger of these three characters, is actually not very helpful here. And then also Kizuryu, who can turn into a mist. Um, Balra, or the carp, the doll of Satatar, Sowatari can probably just suck up the cloud. Like he can absorb everything. Like he like jumps in the air and he like sucks up like a floor of a skyscraper into his mouth and then like goes back into his pocket dimension. So I feel like he could suck him up also. And Gengai Doko is probably the best chance because if he turns his body into a blade, he can probably like use this little gremlin movement and stab Bowder from underneath. And even if he loses like an arm or something, or hurts himself, he can feed himself to the Bakoto, which will keep him alive for a bit. So I actually think that um the Old Man Bount, would actually completely destroy both Kuzuryu and Gengar. But I think Gingai Doko, the third of Hans's gang, would actually pose a threat. So if the other two can coordinate, and we don't know how well these guys work together because we've not really seen them fight together, there is a chance. But I think Old Man Bount is probably going to win here. And Old Man Bount did fight Mayuri and lost eventually, but he did injure Mayuri, badly. Um, yeah, so I think Old Man Bount wins. Now, if we count Hansa as being part of Hansa's gang, who sparred when using the Bakoto, he sparred with Ichigo's Bankai, and Ichigo was kind of overwhelming him, especially when he put on the Hollow Mask, but he was still like kind of he was like low captain level with the Bakoto with him. So I think if Hanzo was there, it would be a fairly even fight and Hanzo would probably win with Gengai Doko's help. But if Hanzo isn't there, I think the Bout would win. So that's the end of fight two. Sorry, I struggled with the pronunciation of the names here. There are basically two characters in Bleach I struggle with the name the most because they're so obscure. Is a part of these two is the Bout and a member of the gang. So apologies for that, but let's move on and not waste any more time and move to fight number three. I'm just gonna clear the text we have here, and I do like having if it's like a really interesting discussion, I do like changing the color, but I think I will just not bother if for some of these guys. So let's go back to our wheel and spin for combatant number one. I think Tokumon has left. Thank you for joining us while you were here. Um, Ichigo Hollow Ajuka's full. That is Ichigo, the form that Ichigo's body takes when he is doing the visor training. So that's our first combatant, and against him is just take a sip of water here. Ruki is Gigai. Ruki is way too weak. She would lose. Combatant number 2 is Shuren. Oh, that's interesting. That's very interesting. All right, let's do that. Let's do that. That sounds good. Let's do that. And we'll color coordinate this one. So I've already explained what it is, so I won't explain that it's a Jukas or whatever. Because if we're talking about Ichigo's, actually Kubo does call the Vastalorde form the full hollow form. So I guess in the brackets I'll just do. I don't know how you spell Ajhuches. I think there's a H in there because it's Spanish. So I'll just do Aj. And let's make this a color. So actually white kind of works. Yeah, you know what? Because it's somewhere like orange or red, but that's gonna look ugly. So we'll do Shuren and we'll do Shuren red. Because he's a fire guy. Or we could do purple because of his lipstick. Sure, let's do purple. And for Ichigo, let's do like an orangey red. See that's an eyesore right there. About that. Sure, let's do it like that. They're slightly different. Okay, I'm getting Discord messages. I don't know if you can hear that. Hopefully you can't hear that because that would be a little distracting. But if, in case you're wondering, that's me, not you. Although I think I have things muted, so. All right, this is an interesting one. So again, just go through what we're talking about. The form that Ichigo took while he was in his inner world and the Visors were fighting him. It's interesting because I don't Ichigo just kind of like lays down and it happens. But I thought I remembered him having his Tensei Zangetsu instead of his regular one. But we're just not going to count his Soul Reaper powers because it is just supposed to be his hollow. So I assume it doesn't have his Soul Reaper powers. Um, yeah. Even though he has a sword, they were talking about should we hide his sword? No, he'll just get more upset. But I don't think he really uses his sword very effectively. In this, I don't remember very well about the sword, so I don't think he uses it much. But he does swipe, and he continues to transform into a hollow with a big thick tail, and he knows how to like move fast and swipe. He's a bit stupid, and he has a Sero. And this is like the weaker version of his full hollow form, which Shuren is trying to bring out in his Vastalorde form. So this is just his Adhuches form, which is what I call it, even though that might not be very accurate. Anyway, yeah. So I always found that fight with the Visors really weird because Ichigo, I think I've mentioned this in a previous live stream, but Ichigo like completely overwhelms Hiyori when he goes into his mask. Um, and I think in the live stream I was like, oh, I used to think that meant that he was way stronger, but I think it was just like by surprise or whatever, or I don't know. But thinking about it again, I think I was right. I think his hollow is way stronger than the others because the hollow mask seems to boost him a lot more than it does the others, which it's really hard to tell how much it actually boosts them, honestly. It doesn't seem like too much. Which is weird because when you go back into the turn back the pendulum arc, the hollow mask on Kensei seems to do a lot. Um, either way, either way, either way. I guess Ichigo didn't have control of the powers, and I think if you have control of the powers, you don't get like all of the powers, kind of like with his two striped mask. So I basically what I'm trying to say is I've always found it weird how the Visors can handle Ichigo's full hollow form without too much issue. Like they get a little injured, but not much, and they're basically just playing around with him, trying to tire him out. While when he is less hollowified, they need like all of them to come and jump him and subdue him. So I find that a little shaky, but they are all supposed to be captain level, and they none of them. I mean, most of them don't use their hollow masks in the fights. I think maybe Love does. I think someone does. Either way, it seems like his biggest weakness is being a brute and being a little stupid. And Shuren is relatively intelligent, even though he gets fooled and he underestimates Ichigo and he gets fooled by the actual villain of the Hellverse movie. He is relatively intelligent because he leads a group of people and he manages to get things figured out. He gets those cloaks which allow them to go outside, which is a little iffy. Um, and then in terms of power, he wants to handle the Vasto Lorde Ichigo to break the gates of hell, but he can't even contain just like masked Ichigo, hollow mask Ichigo, who completely blows him away and supposedly obliterates and kills him. Even though he's going to be reformed, but we won't mention that in this fight. It's just well, yeah, if Shuren was going against somebody stronger, maybe we would talk about that, but let's just see if Ichigo Full Hollow could actually kill Shuren. And Shuren seems to have these fire powers where he can like like spit fire, like kind of like a little machine gun. He like fires like flares at Ichigo and stuff. And he can use it to like propulse him, like jet propulse him, which we see him doing in the human world actually, when he's kidnapping Ichigo's sisters. And yeah, so he has good travel speed, he has good destructive power, speedy, powerful. Ichigo's full hollow doesn't seem to be very fast. He seems to be slow and stupid, but powerful, and he has abilities like he gets cut on the arm, it instant like the shoulder instantly regenerates, and then like one of those big worm hollow mouth things come out, which is pretty crazy. In the manga, I believe Tensei actually blows off a partially hollified Ichigo's arm and it completely grows back. I think that's one of the first time that an arm is lost in Bleach manga. And it's just like it just happens in a very small frame. Like Kensei blew off Ichigo's arm. People don't talk about that much. It's in the manga. Yeah. And so he can even though Ichigo has like instant regeneration, Shuren has like he's immortal, you know? He's immortal. You can kill him, but he will come back later. But could Ichigo kill him? Well, he doesn't have the speed really. But also Shuren's fire blasts don't seem to be too strong. It like hits Ichigo and surprises him, but it doesn't seem to do that much damage. So I feel like it's a weird thing because Shuren's fast. He seems strong, but his doesn't have that much destructive power. Like he can clash blades and he blocks some of Ichigo's like strong attacks. So he can block attacks. I believe if Ichigo Hollow like fired off a Sero, Shuren would probably be able to block it, maybe get a little injured, but I don't think Shuren would get hurt. And you know what? I don't think Ichigo would get hurt. And even if he did, he would just like regenerate. So this is a really weird one because I thought Shuren would wipe the floor because he is so like his little henchman, his little gang is so strong, but it doesn't seem like Shuren is actually that strong. Like he spars with Bankai Ichigo, but he never wins. Like he manages to fend people off when he has like a hostage and backup. But otherwise, we don't really get to see him do too much. He does one-shot Chad, which is actually pretty impressive. I forgot about that. I forgot about that. Chad blocks it, and Chad gets injured, but Chad completely absorbs the attack. So like Rukia isn't hurt, uh Karen isn't hurt. Um yeah, so I suppose Shuren would have the upper hand because I don't think Ichigo could kill him. And Shuren might be able to injure Ichigo, might be able to kill him. So if this is a stalemate, but the fact that they both have some sort of regeneration or immortality thing, I think eventually, even if it's like after days of fighting, like literally like 50 hours of fighting, I think eventually Hollow Ichigo would lose. But it's a very long fight, so it's essentially a stalemate. Unless nobody intervenes, then Ichigo will eventually lose. So that's fight number 3, and you know what? It's been a very short live stream. Should I do another one? I'm not sure. I'm gonna just sip my drink. We've talked about a couple in that Gengai, the Hansa's gang in the old bout was pretty interesting. I'm gonna leave it here. I know we didn't have like the first one was kind of just like Ichigo versus Renji. So no like super close ones, I guess. I guess this is kind of close, and the second fight was really interesting actually. I would like to do more, but because this is my first live stream in a while and I'm getting used to all of this again, I think I'm gonna leave it here, but I will hopefully be live streaming Pokemon Emerald later this evening, maybe tonight. I think I told Tokomon uh, that I was gonna do it at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So we'll see. We'll see about that. Yeah, I'll try and get that done. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me on this Bleach versus live stream. I will be doing more of these. This was just a little warm up. If this was not satisfactory to you, I do have more on the way, and I also have done, I think, about 5 or 6 previous ones. So check those ones out. Also, those ones are a bit more weighty, a bit more meaty than this one. Have a wonderful day. God loves you. Um, if you're struggling with anything, struggling with a friend, with emotions, with money issues, anything like that, just know that, God loves you, He's looking out for you, and in times of trial, sometimes that actually pushes you to do something you otherwise wouldn't do, like I don't really know. I'm going through that right now, which is why I'm bringing it up. I don't know. I'm struggling to get myself established right now, but I'm not worrying about it because God has a good plan for me. And with that being said, I will wrap up the live stream here. Have a good day. Peace out.